Hello, and wherever you're tuning in from around the world, or beyond for that matter, I hope this transmission finds you well and there is value in it for you. You will have happened across this in a timely fashion, as we do with anything. And because of the content of what we're talking about here, and you're finding this video around consciousness, there is no coincidence. There is no mistake within that. It's what we call synchronicity. I said synchronicity at the time of 33 seconds in. So we see these indicators everywhere around us. And what I'm wanting to talk about today is Christ consciousness. I hope you have a cup of tea. I have a chai latte. Christ consciousness, I mean, what do we mean by that? And just now, I just saw 59 as I said Christ consciousness again. And the gate 59 is where the sun is in transit at the moment. Gate 59, again, another synchronicity that takes place as I look at those numbers. I'm not trying to plan anything here. I am splenic in my awareness according to the human design knowledge. I am splenic in my awareness as far as my authority goes. So that's the only authority we can have. It's the only authority we can actually have, is our awareness. It's our awareness. I mean, what are you aware of? And I just saw, when I said awareness, I saw 144. That's a significant number as well. So watching the synchronicities flow right now as the seconds of this video pass by. I will not be editing this video, because more than likely if I was to go through and look at the synchronicities of particular numbers that are maybe sacred in nature, we would find more of these synchronicities taking place. You would be able to look at these numbers, these configurations and geometries as code, because it is all code. And I said that at the time of 2:22. When we let go of trying to be in control, we enter into what is called Christ consciousness. Christ consciousness. We talk about this. It is bandied around in the spiritual circles. It is spoken of, and yet few talk about what it is. Few that I know of, for that matter. Christ consciousness, we need to be able to put it into a human context in order for us to be able to live it, because we are living a human experience. Now, the only kind of control, if there is control in life at all, is if there is choice. The only choice we have is to be aware or not. It is to be aware or not. I mean, that needs to be understood. This aligns with what we're talking about when it comes to Christ consciousness. I was very taken by this phoenix right here. And there we go. That was 3:33 in which I spoke about the phoenix. We're about to enter into a new age. Called the sleeping phoenix. The cross of the sleeping phoenix. It is a collective incarnation cross. And that everyone that is born in that era incarnates into a background frequency, like a homogenized, I guess you could say, frequency that drives the collective to be a particular way, even to drive the collective to be individual. The sleeping phoenix is on the rise. The Christ consciousness that we're talking about, for me, I don't think is separate from any knowledge that there is out there. I've looked into just some. I've just scraped the surface of different knowledges in the Hindu traditions, in the Christian traditions, in the Gnostic and mystic traditions, as well as the shamanic. And when we look into these things, it was 444. When we look into these various pathways of consciousness, we begin to understand that where we can see the similarities across the board, of what brings us to a knowing and an awareness of truth. Of what brings us to a knowing and an awareness of truth. And the only truth that we can actually truly know is that we are aware. Okay? We are aware. And this awareness we can call consciousness. Because that's all that consciousness is. Consciousness is only aware. Everything that consists within consciousness is form, and all form is illusion. It is illusion. It is not the reality. The reality is the consciousness. It is that which can be aware. Without awareness, there can be no thing. There is awareness, pure awareness. Pure awareness is simply the state of awareness, being aware. And Christ consciousness, so we can sit there and go, great, so do we go into the Buddhist mindset and just go into meditation and leave all of this and have no sort of purpose or anything going on? Well, no, I mean, I looked into the Buddhist traditions and I wouldn't say there's anything wrong with that, or that it is the path to go by. I would not discredit or run down any religion or belief system, even though I do not adhere to it. I do not myself, I prefer not to believe. I prefer to know. But I am designed to be that way. I am designed to be that way. So when we see that we all have a differentiation, we all have a uniqueness that is us, we can begin to understand what Christ meant when Christ said, take up your own cross with fear and trembling. Take up your own cross, he said, as the scriptures say. Now, I don't profess to be a Christian of the institutional kind. I was in the institution for 13 years. I was a worship leader for about 8, at least within the worship team, and a songwriter of Christian songs. And none of that went to waste on me. None of that went to waste on me. I had my first satori at 20, and then I found myself in the church around 22. And it had a profound effect on my life. I mean, especially being in the Happy Clappers, the Protestant, the Pentecostal church, the Happy Clappers. I mean, we got it rocking. I used to love getting that show on. I mean, I'm a musician and I have a rock background. And so that was fun. It was really good. But I really took it quite seriously. And so I wrote worship songs and all that sort of thing. But I learned a lot as I looked into the scriptures. I studied deeply. And then I saw that there was an underlying theme. There were threads. There was code within these scriptures. There was a truth that was beyond the truth we were being told. Now, as far as what we were being told is that Christ came to pay, for our sins with his own blood, to basically appease a God that needed justice. And so his God was his dad, is what the Hebrews called Abba, or father, or Abba is the intimate term. That is to say dad, and Jesus called God Abba, dad. The more, instead of, I can't remember what the Hebrew is for father, but it's the same root as for the word origin, and that's the more formal, and everyone went for the formal because God and God's angry. There's this kind of if you go all the way back into the garden, you begin to understand that it was man that tarnished God. It was man that tarnished God, but we don't stop there, because it was God's creation. Okay, it was God's creation. So who is responsible? Well, I'm not going to point the finger, that's for fucking sure. You see, to understand what Christ's consciousness is, we need to understand what the mind of Christ, for us to put it into a human context. What was the mind of Christ? Well, did Christ just come to, pay the debts for some people that had got themselves into a bit of trouble, just come to pay that debt, to appease his Father? I mean, what kind of attitude does his Father have? He talks about a Father that is so loving. And yet where is it that the institution has got it in such a way that it seems that God, the Father, is super angry? What is it about that? I mean, anger is really a human trait. It truly is. So we bring ourselves to asking the question, how do we bring this Christ consciousness, instead of just talking about Christ consciousness, if we want to access that, what does it look like? Well, this man who claimed to be a man, loved, and did not judge. That there is Christ consciousness. It is that which is without judgment. You see, when we judge, we place ourselves on the chopping block. We do it to ourselves. There is no separation. That's what Christ knew. 11:11. There is no separation. That was the key that Christ knew. There is no separation. It was in Christ's prayer. This is Christ consciousness. Is the realization that there is no separateness. As he prayed, I think it was John 10:10, that they be in you and you in me. Just as I am in you and you are in me, may they be in us, all of that sort of talk. I mean, I haven't read the Bible for a long time, but I did study it very, very intensely. I saw 144 again then. Which is 144,000 is in the Bible. It's interesting, these synchronicities that play out. You see, Christ consciousness is a knowing that there is only one way to God. It's correct. There is only one way to God. There's only one way to God. And it doesn't matter what religion you are. It was 12:12. It doesn't matter what religion you are. It just doesn't. There's only one way to God. This is Christ's consciousness. And knowing that there is no separation, you are not separate. That's all you need to know. You are that which is aware. And once you are aware of that awareness, that's it. Allowing yourself to be that which is aware. How can there be judgment? How can there be judgment? You see, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil is the tree of judgment. The fruit that came from that tree was judgment itself. The fruit that they ate, the figurative Adam and Eve, the fruit that they ate was partaking of judgment, because God had declared that everything that was created, this is the code, everything that was created was good. Looking at the keynotes, was good, good, good. There was 13:13. And on the final day, it was very good. And then what God said is, do not partake of that fruit, from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. You see, that there, what comes from good and evil? What is it that naturally comes from knowing good and evil? Judgment. That is the fruit. That is the fruit of knowing good and evil. What God was saying is, I have said it's good. He didn't say it's good and bad. That had not happened yet. Duality, the awareness of duality had not happened yet. So how were Adam and Eve seeing things here? How were they seeing it? How was this gig going down? Well, it said when they ate of that fruit, their eyes were opened. Oh, these two eyes here were obviously closed. And so they were not privy to the plane of pain. The plane of pain is this material plane we live in, the lowest dimension. On the mundane plane, there are lower dimensions. There's always lower dimensions. There's always higher dimensions. There's always wider and infinitesimal dimensions. We truly do not understand the reality. We only experience an existence. That's what this is. It's an existence. An existence stands out from reality. Reality is the awareness. And that which stands out from the awareness, because you're aware, right? That's an existence. You are the reality. You are the reality. And the reality is not the existence. That's Christ consciousness. The reality is not the existence, and you are the reality. 15:15. You are the reality. Understanding that. Being with that. Understanding of Christ's consciousness. So how can one judge? How can one judge? We measure. We do measure. The Maya, the word Maya, it means to measure. It comes from the same root where we get the word mind. The Maya is the mind, and the mind measures. That's what it does. The mind measures. That's all it's here to do. The mind is a ruler. When we look at that word, rulership, whenever there is rulership, the mind is at work. The mind is at play. 16:16. Wherever we see rulership, because a ruler, we see it, it's a measuring device. A ruler is a measuring device. The mind is a measuring device. It is not Christ consciousness. So we do not blend mind and Christ, and yet there is no separation. There is no separation. That is the illusion, remember. The Father and I are one. The Father and I are one. Now we know that the Christ consciousness is the I am. The I am. You cannot state the name of God without first mentioning your personal name. I am Saranta. I am Saranta. Okay. So I'm saying God Saranta. That is Christ consciousness. When you realize that every time you introduce yourself to another person, you are first introducing that which is the I am. And the I am is here. We get to that point to answer that question, to answer what I was talking about earlier on. There is only one path to God. You. You. There's no other way. And that's, it makes fucking sense, right? Sit with that. It makes sense. I'm a mystic. I'm here to make sense of the abstract. I do not have abstract circuitry. And so I need to bring the only way in which I can explain the abstract is in a logical way. And it makes sense. If there is only one God, and there is only one you, do you see it? There's only one God. There's only one you. There will only ever be one you. Allow that transmission to drop in. The phoenix is on the rise. There is only one way to God. As Christ said, I am, which is the name of God. I am. You see, we cannot introduce ourselves. Even when we introduce ourselves, we have to say I am. We have to declare God first. Divinity first. I am. Christ said the way, the truth, the life. When you realize that I am the way, the truth, and the life, as Christ did, he said that is Christ consciousness right there. You can feel that. You know that. And it is no mistake that this is an affirmation for you to enter into that where you are. There is no prayer. There's no way in. accept your way. I am the way, the truth, and the life. I am is, we use it every day. We just don't realize what we say. We do not realize the magic on the end of our tongue. If only we could be present enough to what is, not what isn't. Like mind, like the thoughts of the mind. Thoughts are just measurements and conclusions, and not even correct ones half the time at that. There's no truth to thought. There's no truth to it. Because you cannot show evidence of it. You cannot. You can even think, but realize, you try and get your thought out. Exactly how it is in your mind, out of your mouth. It just doesn't happen. The mind can only be interpreted. And the best way in which to interpret the mind is as yourself. It truly is. Understanding that Christ consciousness is knowing that I am the way, the truth, and the life. And therefore, there is no separation. There can't be. Because everyone is I am. And they are the way. And they are the truth. And they are the life, according to them within their I amness. It's just the way it is across the board. Religions are just part of our evolutionary process. I mean, they come and they go. Gods come and they go. It's not about God. It's about I am. Because whatever we call God, as it says in the Taoist tradition, the Tao that can be named is no longer the Tao. It just makes sense. You know, I have the name Siddhanta, but as soon as I call myself Siddhanta, I'm not what I am. See and feel that riddle. Wow. I hope this transmission was a transition for you. To look at Christ consciousness as that understanding of I amness, and also understanding that you are the only way in which you can truly understand or even reach the consciousness level or dimension that we call God or heaven or whatever it is for you. That divine, the ultimate, the transcendent. We as humans are so different from animals. And we share so much with them, with that animal kingdom. But we are so different because of our ability to have mind. And it's not our friend. It's such a tricky dilemma we find ourselves in. But when you understand that there is no separation, and that the path to the divine is in yourself, you're free. You're truly free to be yourself. And when you turn up as yourself, well, life becomes easy, it becomes real, and it becomes true. Christ consciousness is the pure acceptance of self, connected within and in the divine. It's where there is an absence of judgment, and therefore always compassion. When we see Christ on the cross, that is a symbol of Aaron's rod budding, new life, coming out of judgment, new life. And that we see Christ on the cross not judging, but also not forgiving. Christ asking God to forgive, realizing that to forgive is not up to me, but also knowing that how can he forgive when he is the pure symbol of forgiveness itself, in that there is no judgment. And when you do not judge, there's nothing to forgive. When you do not judge, there is nothing to forgive. And that's, well, It's whatever it means to you. And until next time, bye for now.